Welcome.
Hello, Andy.
How's it going? Nice to see you. Have a seat. So you've had quite a day.
Oh, the Pope is a wonderful guy.
Let's start right there.
Surprised.
How surprised were you by what the Pope said? For those who don't know, he said, part of what he said was, a person who thinks only about building walls wherever they may be and not of building bridges is not Christian. This is not the gospel.
Well, I didn't think it was a good thing for him to say, frankly, and he was talking about the border. And as you know, I'm very strong on border security, and we have to have a border in this country, and we certainly don't have one right now. And as you know, we're talking about building a wall. We're going to build a wall, and Mexico is going to pay for the wall, and that's the way it is. We have a trade balance, and if you look at it, imbalance of about $58 billion with Mexico. And it's really more than that because we also subsidize, et cetera, et cetera. So they're going to pay for the wall. But somehow the government of Mexico spoke with the Pope. I mean, they spent a lot of time with the Pope. And by the time he left, he made a statement. I don't know if
Wait, you think the government of Mexico somehow got the Pope to say this?
Well, I don't think they said that way, but I think they probably talked about, isn't it terrible that Mr. Trump wants to have border security, et cetera, et cetera. And the Pope made the statement, and I think it was probably a little bit nicer statement than was reported by you folks in the media, because after I read it, it was a little bit softer. But the bottom line is we've got to have a border. We've got to have security. We have tremendous illegal immigration in the country.
Well, I'll just say the Pope did go on to say this is not the gospel. As far as what you have said about whether I would advise to vote or not to vote, I'm not going to get involved in that. I say only that this man is not Christian. If he has said things like that, we must see if he said things in that way, and I will give him the benefit of the doubt.
And he also talked about having a wall is not Christian, and he's got an awfully big wall at the Vatican, I will tell you. So it's going to be an interesting...
But people do come and go through the Vatican. I mean, it's open to tourists.
And they're going to come and go through the wall. I mean, but they're going to come and go legally. They're going to do it legally. And that's what I want, and that's what a lot of people want, obviously, because they agree with me.
You've been in fights with a lot of people, but with the Pope, I mean, does it give you pause?
I don't like fighting with the Pope, actually. I don't think this is a fight. I think he said something much softer than was originally reported by the media. I think that he heard one side of the story, which is probably by the Mexican government. He didn't see the tremendous strain that, the border is causing us with respect to illegal immigration, with the drugs pouring across the border. I mean, I just won the New Hampshire primary, and I will tell you, these are amazing people. The biggest single problem that I have, no matter where I went to New Hampshire, was heroin. And it's pouring in, and it is just pouring into the area. And, it's sort of funny because you look at New Hampshire as being this beautiful, idyllic place, magnificent. I loved it. I loved the people there. I loved the whole place. And it's the last place you think that they really have a big drug problem. They have a massive drug problem, as you know, and it's always the first subject. No matter what I do, it's the first subject they want to talk about. And we've got to stop it. And it's pouring in through the southern border, and we are going to stop it.
I just want to ask you one more question on the Pope, and then we'll move on, because there's a lot of other items in the news before we get to our voters, many of whom are undecided, as many people are in this state.
Really?
So you could,
undecided?
Well, you're doing well in the polls. You could pick up a couple of votes tonight.
Well, I thought so. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Good. We'll see. But early on, you talked about the forgiveness, and you were asked, in terms of your faith, whether you asked for forgiveness. And one point, I remember you said to me, you try not to do things wrong so that you don't have to ask for forgiveness. Was there a moment when you first heard the Pope had said something about you that you thought, maybe I'm going to have to ask for forgiveness?
No. Look, I really, not really. I have a lot of respect for the Pope. I think he's got a lot of personalities, very different. He's a very different kind of a guy. And I think he's doing a very good job. He's a lot of energy. But I would say that I think he was very much misinterpreted. And I also think he was given false information. If he would have heard our side, the side from people that live in the United States.
Would you like to meet with him and talk to him about it?
I'll do it anytime he wants. I mean, I think it would be very interesting. No, I like him. I mean, I like him as a personality. I like what he represents. And I certainly have great respect for the position.
As you know, we did a town hall last night. I talked to Marco Rubio. I talked to Senator Cruz. You sent Senator Cruz a cease and desist letter to the campaign about an ad they're running that features an old interview you did with Tim Russert back in the late 90s.
Long time ago.
Yeah, when you were...
Many years ago.
When you were pro-choice. You are now, say, your position is completely changed. You are pro-life, and you're adamant about that. But
that's not the only thing. I mean, look, he has a problem with the truth. And even Marco Rubio, I guess today there was something about a picture was manufactured and it was not
photoshopped, right?
Well, it was totally photoshopped. I could see by just looking at it. In fact, they even made Marco a lot shorter than he is, if you look at it really. And I'm sure that's probably the thing that bothered him the most. He was a hell of a lot. he was like very small. I mean, he's not that small, not too big, but he's not so small. But I will tell you, I looked at that photo. I said immediately it was photoshopped. But if you look at what he did, I'm talking about Cruz to Ben Carson, where he said, listen, he's out of the race. Everybody come vote for us. He's out of the race. That was so dishonest. And then he did something else that you people never picked up on, and I think it was the worst of all. He did a voter violation notice. It looked like it's right out of the IRS.
Yeah, we talked about it.
The official paper. It was so disgusting. And it's basically, you have a voter violation. Now, they don't have lawyers. These are people that were frightened when they got it. And it graded them, and you have an F, 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 F. And essentially it says, if you vote for Ted Cruz, this violation is going to go away. And let me tell you something. People voted for him because of that. That was a fraudulent document. And he said things about me. For instance, I'm very strong on the Second Amendment. He said, Donald Trump will leave the Second Amendment. He's going to destroy the Second Amendment. You're not going to have a Second Amendment. There's even one going up now in Nevada. He's got something about land that I'm for taking back the land. I have nothing to do with it. He will make up stories. And, you know, he holds up the Bible, and then he lies. I think it's very inappropriate.
But a cease and desist letter, I mean, you're not going to sue him.
Well, you don't know that, but I like to send letters. I have a lot of lawyers. I have wonderful lawyers. I like to send letters. But you know what? It's good that people know, and I think it's probably affected him, because I know the CBS poll just came out a little while ago, and New York Times CBS, and I mean, my numbers are fantastic, but I think it had an impact.
In that particular commercial, he's using an interview you did give in the late 90s. It doesn't represent your current position.
But he's not saying that. He's saying, I am. And you take a look at the words he said. When he goes around talking to people, he uses that. That was, what, 17 or 19 years ago? That was a long time ago. It was with Tim Russert, who, by the way, was a great guy. We missed Tim Russert. I really liked him a lot. But it was with Tim Russert. And you got to explain my views now, too. You can't say, I am, because he was saying, I am. And that's what he was doing when he went out to audiences. And it's just not true. And as far as Second Amendment, I'm the strongest person running on the Second Amendment. And he would say, you know, he'd just make up stories. So it was inappropriate, Anderson, and we sent him something. We'll see what happens. Who knows? I mean, I think he's got other cases. I think the wonderful case is going to be whether or not, and I understand he got sued today, actually. He's going to be sued by a lot of people. He's going to be sued by the Democrats if he ever got the nomination, which I don't think he will, honestly. I don't think he will. But if he ever got the nomination, I don't think he's got a very good chance of getting it. But he was sued today on the fact that he was born in Canada. It's a big problem. Problem for the party, for the Republican Party.
You send out cease and desist letters, as you say. You got a lot of lawyers. You like to send out letters. You certainly attack.
Like to, but it's something I will do on occasion.
You certainly attack back. Your critics say, "Look, you're a bully." How do you respond?
I'm not a bully. No, I'm not a bully at all. I don't think I'm a bully at all. I built a great company. I filed, as you know, when I did my file, everyone said I wasn't going to run. Then I ran. Then I signed certain documents. Everyone said you'll never sign. You know, you basically sign your life away. Form A or whatever it's called. I signed Form A. It's like, you know, they said, wow, he signed that. Then they said, well, he'll never put in his financials because maybe they're not as good. Turned out they're much better than anybody ever even envisioned. And I built a great company. You have to have a certain personality to build it. I have some of the greatest assets in the world, very low debt, tremendous cash flow. I mean, it's a truly great company.
So as president, would you be sending cease and desist letters? Would you?
Yeah, maybe to China. No, I would be. I would be sending them to China to stop ripping us off. I would be sending them to other countries to stop ripping us off. I'd send them to Mexico. And when I say cease and desist, maybe it's equivalent, okay? Maybe I do it with my mouth.
With?
Of course. Look, our country is going to hell. We have a problem with China. We have a problem with Japan. We have a problem with Mexico, both at the border and in trade. Carrier just announced they're moving to Carrier air conditioner. I buy them all the time. I'm not going to buy them anymore, by the way. I buy thousands. They're moving to Mexico. I saw the clip. I saw the boss saying, we're closing up, we're moving to Mexico. What do we get out of it? They're moving to Mexico. Now they're going to make air conditioners, sell them to us, no tax, no nothing. We get nothing out of it. By the way, if we said, guess what, you're going to have to pay a 35% tax to get them through the border, they wouldn't even move.
I want you to meet some of the voters. Sherry